All right, good evening, Chevra. It's very, very late. It's your friend Rabbi Yitzchak Kolakowski, the Koblenzer Rebbe. Just wanted to talk a few minutes. What went on today is very, very upsetting to me, and I'm sure to everybody else. I want to say that anybody who uh, who engaged in this violence today has undermined everything that President Trump has been fighting for 4 years. They made him look bad. They made all of us look bad. And there's no excuse for it. I'm never going to say there's not a time and a place for violence. There's a time and a place, but this was not the time, this is not the place. And the times and the places are very rare. The Bible tells us that there is a time for love, a time for hate, a time for war, a time for peace. To do this while this was going on destroyed any chance. I mean, I'm not maybe not any chance, but any chance that I could see. And of course, there's many things I can't see of turning this around, and it's extremely upsetting. And it's there are not enough words to condemn this. These people who did this have to go to prison for a long time. And it's very, very upsetting. But the truth is, the people who did it uh, during the Kavanaugh hearings also deserve to go to prison. I don't know if they did or didn't. And there's really not that much of a difference. Um, but it's worse when our side does it. I don't consider these people to be our side, even if they claim to be. And that comes to a different point, although it's probably more important, because where are we going from here? What's next? And I think I was listening to Glenn Beck tonight, and I really consider him to be a prophetic voice in the wilderness. And he was very frustrated and very upset, and he didn't know what to say, and I don't know what to say. And one thing he was saying was that it used to be you could disagree with someone without vilifying them. You could still go have a beer with them, play a round of golf. And I don't like beer. I like other alcoholic drinks, but not beer. And I tried golf, and maybe, you know, could play Nintendo or something with them. I don't know, and drink a wine cooler with Smirnoff Ice with a Heckscher on it together. But or the apple cider from Warwick also has a good Heckscher on it, and the apple one is good. The pear one is kind of flavorless, or some good mead, which it looks like some of the people who uh, who were there today were mead drinkers. Um, but we also like mead. Chassidim always liked mead. But we could sit and have a drink together, or play a game together, and something innocuous and unthreatening, and we could agree to disagree. And he said nowadays we can't do that. And before this happened today, he said he doesn't really want to with people who are so far different. He gave the example. He said if you're a radical jihadist who thinks, you have to kill the infidel, or even if you're not going to do that, that, eventually it's going to happen. There's very little we could dialogue with. But despite that, he said he's friends with a lot of pious Muslims who pray 5 times a day and believe in the Quran. They can agree to disagree, right? And so too with our political differences. We can agree to disagree, but there's a certain level where we can't. And the thing that he said tonight, that Glenn Beck said tonight, that I think was very poignant, is that he gave a mashal, he gave the parable of a football field, and he said, there's the 2 end zones, and there's the extreme end zones with the end zones, right? Past the goal line, past the end zones, right? Outside of the football field, even. Already in the stands, maybe, where the players don't belong, right? And there's those 2 extremes on the left and on the right. He said, 90%, 95%, even 99% of us are somewhere in the middle. We might be straight in the middle, or we might even be all the way to the right or to the left without being in the end zone. And the truth is, and this is what also I'm saying, is that as long as we're on the field and not in the end zone, we should be able to sit down and have a drink or play a game, or even just sit down and have a conversation. And it should be okay. And I've done that, maybe not having a drink, maybe not even playing a game, but just sitting and talking. Getting to know the other person, seeing that they're a human being. Seeing that there's more that unites us than that divides us, and that those things that divide us, it's okay. We don't always have to disagree. I do a podcast every week, and with Rosh Hashiva, very choshev Rosh Hashiva, and he said something that, Rabbi Yitzchak, I don't think you're much of an NPR listener, and I'll tell you. And I said, the truth is, I enjoy listening to NPR. I want to hear the other side, just like I want to hear what a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist has to say, or even the Asatru, which it seems that was represented today in the in these events today. Beyond the protests, going into the riots and going into illegal activities. It appears that some of the people who I don't think were just plants by Antifa. Do I think there were Antifa plants? Yes. But some of these people, I think, really think that they're supporting the president, and I think they're misguided. And I could see even sitting down and talking to them. I'm willing to sit and talk to anybody. One of the most beautiful things I saw when I was a Rav in Richmond was when the what's the name of that group? The Westover Baptist Church, or don't remember. Westboro Baptist Church, right? They came to Richmond and they protested outside the Holocaust Museum. And Jay Ibsen, Silke Sunstein, was the founder and at the time the president of the Holocaust Museum. He invited them to come in and see how God saved his life during the Holocaust. And they weren't interested. And I think it would have been a beautiful thing that they could have come and seen. This is a man who has no problem dialoguing with Christian clergy or Muslim clergy, with politicians, with atheists, with anybody, agnostics, with anybody. And it really inspired me. And I would have the same thing. Have no problem to talk to these people and agree to disagree and have a dialogue. And really, it's the same thing with anybody. I would be happy to sit and have a dialogue with anybody, with people who I strongly disagree with, whether it's very close with us, whether they're uh, maybe very religious Zionists, and I agree to disagree, or people far away from us, different from us, whether the Asatru, whether the Nation of Islam, whoever they are. Why not? Why can't we have a dialogue? Why can't we get to know each other? Why why do we vilify those who seek to do that? To seek to talk to the extreme elements. But beyond that, those extremes, and I doubt that I'm going to have an audience with Louis Farrakhan anytime soon, or with Chveis, with I don't need to mention the names of certain extremists in Asatru community or so forth. But I could probably have a dialogue with someone, some of these other Gothis who are not as extreme in Asatru community. I could see having dialogue, and I have. And at work, I've sat with all different religions, with Catholic and Protestant, Russian Orthodox, with Muslims, with Wiccans and Buddhists, and Odinists, and all these other, and Jehovah's Witnesses, and everybody, and we get along. And I'll say, I don't know maybe how they feel about me, but I like them, and I enjoy this experience of interacting with the clergy of these other faiths, and I enjoy interacting with even with reform or conservative or reconstructionist, and all these people I disagree with, and with extreme in my own community, extreme Neturei Karta, whoever else, just like with extreme Zionists, I have no problem sitting and talking to them, making a dialogue, and agreeing to disagree. And I'll disagree just as strongly with Yisrael David Weiss as I would with Chveis, with maybe who I've spoken to, or with Chveis, with Avi Weiss, who I've also spoken to, also had conversations with, and enjoyed. It's a geschmack to sit and talk to Reb Avi Weiss, and it's a geschmack to talk to Reb David Weiss. And I disagree with both of them. But we have to learn to get along. We have to engage in dialogues. We have to open up the lines of communication. And we don't necessarily have to talk about the things we disagree with. We don't necessarily have to bring up differences in Zionism when talking between a religious Zionist and a religious anti-Zionist. We don't necessarily even have to talk about theology when talking between a believer and an atheist. And maybe we can get to that at some point. And maybe we could just sit and play Nintendo or shoot the breeze or ask each other questions about other things. Because, the truth of the matter is, I remember I was at a conference on chaplaincy, and they were talking about the potential for lawsuits if you how to address issues, right, that are controversial, right, and questions, let's say, of sexual orientation, things like that, And I remember there was a lawyer there telling us, what can we get away with as government employees? You know, if they're going to ask you what does your church teach about this or that, and you have to be honest. Well, this is what our church teaches, but that doesn't mean that we have to be violent. This doesn't mean that we have to have any personal ill will against other people, but this is what we teach, and that this is sin, etc., etc., right? And I remember speaking up, and I was saying, you know, uh, we're sitting here and we're having a Bible study, right? And we're reading right now the book of Micah, or and we're not learning Leviticus. So maybe when we're learning Leviticus, we can discuss. And when we're learning Leviticus, what chapter in Leviticus are we learning? So maybe when it's Achrei Mois Kedoshim, and these things appear in the Parsha,